The best homemade goulash is where it's at. It's all made in a skillet, has levels of flavor with multiple ways to use tomatoes for a delicious finish, bubbly cheese on top. It's a great weeknight meal, it's a great skillet meal, and I think you're gonna love it. Let's make it. So goulash may not be something that sounds amazing, but it really is. And I grew up on it, kind of a Midwest staple. Maybe it's an everywhere thing, but really what it is it can be a skillet meal that you finish off in the oven just to get the cheese crispy, but it's pretty homey, it's pretty simple. It has lots of tomato base in it, and that's where you really wanna amp up the flavor. So we're gonna use tomato in multiple ways. We're gonna use macaroni or that type of noodle. And then we're of course gonna start with a base of meat, and we wanna give the meat flavor. So to me, anytime growing up, you were gonna start browning meat. Mom always was gonna do onion and garlic with it. So we're gonna do the same thing right now. We have some onion that I'm chopping up, and we have some garlic here that I chopped up, and we have ground beef. Now, why I love ground beef sometimes, or any ground meat, and you could switch up the meat if you wanted to, or have no meat at all. That's the beauty of it. But a ground meat is something you can keep in your freezer. You can get good quality at a better price usually than big cuts of meat. And it's just a great one to have, take out the night before in the fridge, let it thaw, and then use it. So I have a little bit of oil, depending on how fatty your meat is gonna be, you don't have to use oil. I like to start with a little bit of oil in my skillet when I'm gonna put my onion in, and then all my other things. So I have my onion, I have my garlic, and yes, generally when we're doing things like building a sauce or a soup, we're going to brown the onion maybe a little bit. We're gonna then later on add the garlic, but in this case, we're doing everything at once. We have our onion in there, we have our garlic in there, and we're just gonna add the meat, that ground meat right into, and what that's gonna do is just all cook together. So we're gonna let this get browned, we're gonna break it up as we go until it's cooked. So you can see it browns up pretty quickly. And now if you would happen to have a more fatty or, higher fat meat, you might have a little bit more liquid in there. And so if you need to, you could drain that out. Now I'm going to put in tomato paste, and you're gonna notice it's a good amount of tomato paste. I want a nice, rich, sweet tomato flavor underneath everything. But the important part now is I want it to cook out. I want it to actually caramelize and turn darker with the meat. So I'm gonna stir this into the meat, and we're gonna let it actually cook for a while. And that's gonna make this become even richer and sweeter. It's an important step. So you can't be here to smell it, but it smells richer. It really does. But also you can just tell how dry it is and how it just wants to begin sticking on the bottom of the pan. That means that's caramelized, and so now we can move on. So salt, we haven't salted this yet. You definitely need salt to balance out all those tomatoes and just really season everything. And then spices. So paprika is essential when you're having goulash. You need that sweet paprika in there. We have some dried basil, some dried oregano, and some black pepper. Now, all those are essential. The thing is, it's not that we're trying to make this necessarily like strong herby flavor, but you need something more than just that tomato. So we're gonna work these in a little bit with that hot mixture because I want them to really open up and bloom. And instantly, I'm smelling them and they smell delicious. And you can't tell, but that paprika is also gonna give it a beautiful color. So now that that's in, we have a whole conglomeration of things because we're gonna cook the noodles then right in this. So we're gonna start with some tomato sauce. So tomato sauce is thicker and it's rich. So tomato sauce has the richness, which is what we want, and look how beautiful that is. And then we're gonna pour in some diced tomatoes. So they're gonna give it a little bit more texture, which to me is essential here. We want the texture and to let you know that they're all different levels of flavor too. So we're gonna stir that together. Then we're gonna add in a little bit of beef stock. Now you could use a bone broth on this too. What this does is it amps up the beefiness. So we have some of that, hamburger in there, which is gonna be great, but you wanna actually have the flavor. And then the odd one is a little bit of tomato juice. Now I home can tomato juice, so I always use that. But you can use any type of store-bought tomato juice, but what this does, it again adds a whole nother level of that tomato flavor. And we're doing all this because now we're gonna cook the noodles right in this. So you can see it's already simmering. So when I put the noodles in, they're now gonna cook within that mixture. Think of this as kind of like a casserole. You know what? Once in a while, we didn't a lot, but once in a while, Mom would have us make, those boxed helpers that you have to put beef with the noodles. That's what this would be like. So it's coming to a simmer. I'm gonna let these noodles just cook in this. I'm gonna stir it just enough to make sure they're kind of evenly distributed. Just let it simmer. We don't need to cook it hard. A nice simmer is okay. I'm gonna actually cover it. And soon, it's gonna be pretty much ready. The macaroni has been cooking, and so we just wanna get it till it's done. So what we need on top is some shredded cheese, because why not? You know, if it's gonna be kind of a casserole-like staple, you need to have the shredded cheese. So what you can see here is this has been cooking. The noodles have really absorbed some of that extra liquid. You could eat it just like this, but come on, why would you do that? So what we're gonna do is just make it's an even level, so that's perfect. We're gonna take the shredded cheese, and I just think it needs to be the yellow cheddar. Yeah, it does. I know cheddar is traditionally, you know, truly isn't yellow, but there's something about it that yellow on top of this wonderful red tomatoey goulash is just, to me, it's iconic and it's needed. So now what we're gonna do is we're gonna set this under the broiler. Yeah, it's heavy. So we're gonna open this up. Make sure you have hot pads. We're gonna set it underneath there, let it get all bubbly and melty on top, and we'll be ready to eat. I just pulled it out of the oven. Just have to spend a little bit of time under the broiler, and that just gets it all bubbly, gets a little bit of the cheese to turn some color, which is what I want. It smells delicious. You know, sometimes we had this maybe at school once in a while growing up, but this is so much better. Look at all that goodness. You have the meat in there, you have the noodles, the cheese. I wish we could all share this together, but I'll take one for all of us and just try it. It's still hot, if you can't tell, but look at that cheese. Like, look how good that cheesiness is. It's homey. That's what I love. It tastes like what you imagine it should taste like, and it actually tastes like that. You know when you have those food memories, and then you go have some, or you go have some somewhere else, and you're like, that's not how I remember it. This is how I remember it. It has a really rich, almost sweet caramelly flavor from that. Caramelly is a weird way to describe it, but from that tomato paste that caramelized with the meat, you get a richness in the tomato from that. And then you have all the levels of tomato. You have some pieces of tomato from it being diced. You have the soft noodles. You have that ground beef. You have the seasonings in it, the cheese on top. Guys, this is good. It's great. It's delicious. It can be a great family meal. You can see it can make leftovers or feed a crowd, which is wonderful. It's all made in a skillet. You can eat leftovers for the whole week. Take it to lunch with you if you need to, whatever works for you. So that's what I hope you do with this. I hope you find a way to make it work for you. It's about putting food on the table, whether that's bringing your family together or just to get you through the week. And as always, check my website, wiseguy.com, for this recipe, all my other recipes, they're all on there. My whole point in doing this is to say, if I can do this, anybody can do this. It's that easy to make and it's that good. So have fun with it, share it around, enjoy some good food.